This video, I'm going to be breaking down the UFC fight night that takes place this weekend between Israel Adesanya versus Nassourdine Imavov. An absolute banger. This card is an absolute banger, to be totally honest with you. It's kind of crazy that this card, that's a fight night, is a lot better than UFC 312 that basically only has Sean Strickland, Duplessis, Tatiana Suarez, and Yang Weili. And then the rest of the card is absolutely horrendous. And this card is amazing. I cannot wait for this card. Honestly, I was going to post a video earlier than today, but I just haven't had a chance to. But honestly, guys, I'm going to start off with the main event. Israel Adesanya facing off Nassourdine Imavov. This should be a really good fight. Both of these guys are really good strikers. This should be a really, really fun fight. Nassourdine Imavov has momentum on his side. Israel Adesanya, on the other hand, has the experience on his side. And this is a very interesting matchup because I've heard a lot of different narratives when it comes to this fight. I've heard people say that Israel Adesanya looked amazing against Dricus Duplessis, that he was on his way to winning that fight on points. You know, I've heard people say that that's the best version of Israel Adesanya we've ever seen because of the volume, because of the striking numbers. And I don't know, maybe I'm crazy, but rewatching that fight, because I've rewatched that fight so many times, I don't see that at all. I don't think this is the best version of Israel Adesanya. Yeah, he's improved his boxing. Yeah, he's more willing to trade. He's not as boring, I will say that. But I don't think this is the best version of Israel Adesanya. If anything, to me, what the Dricus Duplessis fight proved was that he's declining when it comes to his reaction time. He's declined a bit when it comes to his durability in terms of his chin, something that we've always talked about when it comes to Israel Adesanya in terms of when we break down his fights, is that this guy has a granite chin. He's really hard to knock out, but maybe because of those two fights against Alex Pereira, especially that first one, maybe his chin isn't as good as it used to be. I mean, he got drawn by Sean Strickland. He kind of got hurt by Dricus Duplessis before he got submitted in that fight. Dricus Duplessis was having a lot of success in that fight. And like I said, people have this misconception that, you know, Adesanya was schooling Dricus Duplessis up until that submission, which is absolutely not true. And if you look at the judges' scorecards, they had two of the judges had Dricus Duplessis up 2 rounds to 1 against Israel Adesanya. I understand Israel Adesanya maybe was getting a bit of momentum in those later rounds with the body shots, with the body kicks. And Dricus Duplessis, I mean, he always looked like a sloppy man on the feet. But, man, Dricus was actually landing some pretty good shots on Israel Adesanya. And I did not like how Israel Adesanya was reacting to some of those shots. Like I said, before that, he got dropped by Sean Strickland. Before that, he had the 2 wars against Alex Pereira, specifically that first one, right? Because the second one, I mean, he was on his way to, you know, probably losing that fight, and then he was able to counter a very overzealous Alex Pereira there. So I think Israel Adesanya's on the decline, guys. So I don't really know where that narrative came from, that this guy's improving, that he's a lot better. I'm not saying this guy necessarily washed. I'm not saying that he has no chance of winning this fight against Nassourdine Imavov. But me rewatching that fight against Dricus Duplessis, I don't take away, man, Israel Adesanya looks better than ever before. Like, no, of course, he had good volume. You know, he was in the fight. I'm not saying that Dricus Duplessis just absolutely dominated, but I definitely think this is Israel Adesanya who's on his way down, who, like I said, doesn't have his reaction times aren't as fast as it used to be. I feel like his counters aren't as fast as it used to be. Maybe that also has to do with the fact that there's so much tape on Israel Adesanya. I mean, this guy was a long reigning champion for a while, so there's so many fights you can go back and rewatch and really study a lot of Israel Adesanya's patterns. So that really helps his opponents here, and I think that's really going to help Nassourdine Imavov in this fight. Now, with Nassourdine Imavov, I think this guy's a little bit underrated. Now, I understand why he's not rated that highly. I think his last couple of fights haven't been like the most impressive performances, specifically his last fight against Brendan Allen that took place at UFC Paris. He kind of struggled in that first round, was controlled on the ground. I mean, Brendan Allen's a pretty good wrestler, pretty good grappler. But then in that second and third round, you know, Imavov was able to get some momentum and kind of slide out a decision there. So as much as it wasn't like in a very, very impressive performance that you're like, man, this guy's a future champion, I think that's still a pretty good win. Before that, Nassourdine Imavov faced Jared Cannonier in a fight where he was kind of struggling in those first 2 rounds. And then that third, fourth, that's when he got some momentum. And in the 4th round, he was able to hurt Jared Cannonier with like a right hook. And then he was like almost going to finish him. I mean, it was kind of an early stoppage, but I think that fight was definitely going in the direction of Nassourdine Imavov. And I think this guy's very underrated. Like I said, he has kind of an elusive style. It reminds me a little bit of Cyril Gane. Very confident, very, stands very straight up. And I mean, he doesn't have like the craziest kicks. He's more of a boxer, but I still think that, he has a pretty good chin. He keeps his hands very high, which maybe makes him a little susceptible to body shots here from Israel Adesanya. But I like the way that Nassourdine Imavov fights. I'm not like super confident that he wins this fight, guys. But if I'm being honest, I feel like at this point, I trust Nassourdine Imavov more than I trust Israel Adesanya, because Israel Adesanya, like, okay, forget the two Alex Pereira fights, right? Before that, he had like a lackluster fight against Jared Cannonier, and then before that, he had like a lackluster win over Robert Whittaker in the rematch, and then before that, he had a lackluster win against Marvin Vettori, the rematch. So I feel like now that he doesn't have a chip on his shoulder, now that there's no bad blood in this fight, maybe, Adesanya's just not that hungry anymore. That's something that I've noticed from his interviews, that I feel like he's kind of accepted that, like, I'm kind of in the later half of my career, and I feel like this is everything for Nassourdine Imavov. I just think that Adesanya, I think he fights best when there's a chip on his shoulder, when he has something to prove. And I just don't get that sense from Israel Adesanya coming into this fight that he has something to prove. I feel like he kind of feels like, oh, I'm just going to have fun out here. And I don't know if Nassourdine Imavov is the guy that you want to choose to go have fun in the octagon, because Nassourdine Imavov, I think he's improved a lot since his loss against Sean Strickland. And like I said, he's in a bit of a momentum. He was winning that fight against Chris Curtis as well, before it became a no contest. But I think Nassourdine Imavov, I think he's the real deal. And I think this is going to be a very competitive match. I think this is going to be a very, very competitive fight. And I think I'm going to go with Nassourdine Imavov to win this fight, guys. I could see a fight here where, maybe Israel Adesanya is kind of schooling him a little bit in those first early rounds. And then Nassourdine Imavov maybe is able to land like a right or left hook. Maybe goes for a couple takedowns. And then he kind of hurts Israel Adesanya. We see Israel Adesanya kind of moving away from Nassourdine Imavov, while Imavov starts to pressure him up against the fence. And then, is able to finish Izzy. I think he could also win by decision with the grappling. I think he has pretty nasty ground and pound. And I don't know, man. I don't know what people are seeing from Israel Adesanya in this fight to be that confident. Like, I'm picking Nassourdine Imavov, but I'm not counting out Israel Adesanya. I mean, the guy in the early rounds is very, very dangerous. He has knockout power. But to be totally honest with you, we haven't seen that lately. Now, Alex Pereira, I'm not trying to say that was a fluke, right? But that's a weakness that Alex Pereira had. And then before that, who did he fight? He fought Alex Pereira the first time. Before that, he had fought Jared Cannonier, who he wasn't able to knock out. You know what I'm saying? He played it very, very safe against Jared Cannonier. And then before that, against Robert Whittaker, it was a very, very lackluster fight in which a lot of people thought Robert Whittaker won. So this is not, like, I'm not just picking Nassourdine Imavov all of a sudden just because Israel Adesanya lost to Dricus du Plessis. Like, if you go back and rewatch a lot of Israel Adesanya's fights, before the Strickland fight, before the Pereira fight, like, this guy was already kind of like, coasting in. And if you're going to competitive fights with Marvin Vettori, the rematch, which was competitive, even though the rounds, you could give him to Adesanya, they were very close rounds. If you're having a little bit of problems with Marvin Vettori, I think Nassourdine Imavov, who's the same stature as you, I think he's going to give you a lot of problems. So I think Imavov's going to win this fight. He's an underdog pick here, guys. And like I said, I kind of wanted to pick Israel Adesanya to win in this matchup, but the more I've thought about it, the more I've thought of where Israel Adesanya is at this point in his career, how confident Nassourdine Imavov looks, how active he's been. I think that's really going to help Imavov, the fact that he's been active. I believe he fought like 3 times last year. He fought Brendan Allen, then he fought Brendan Allen was the last guy he fought in 2024, and I think in the summer he fought Jared Cannonier, and in the beginning of the year he had a good fight against Roman Dolidze. So I feel like I like that for Imavov. This is definitely a big step up in competition. Like, he hasn't faced anyone like Israel Adesanya, but I don't know, man. I wasn't impressed with Israel Adesanya in his last fight, and even before the Sean Strickland fight, nobody was impressed with that. But he kind of had an excuse because it was kind of a short notice fight, a DUI. He was dealing with a lot of stuff behind the scenes. But I'm going to go with Imavov to win this matchup, guys. I really do think he's going to win this fight. Like I said, I think that he's crafty enough. I think he's durable enough. I think he knows how to win fights even when they're not necessarily going his way. And I could just see, maybe Israel Adesanya having, those first couple rounds, and then Nassourdine Imavov kind of growing into the fight. We see Adesanya starts to slow down, and I think that's when Imavov can capitalize, potentially with a decision here. Maybe, ground and pound submission, TKO. I don't know. Like I said, I just do not trust Israel Adesanya's durability. I do not trust him in this fight. He's been very very inconsistent with his performances, and I feel like people need to stop making excuses for him. I think people look at Israel Adesanya with these, like, I don't know, they hype him up too much, in my opinion. They hype him up too much, and it's kind of crazy how many people are picking Israel Adesanya. I would have expected Nassourdine Imavov to be a slight favorite, and like I said, that narrative that Adesanya was winning that fight against DDP is absolutely delusional, very, very delusional. Magomedov facing off against Michael Venom Page at 185 pounds, and this is a very interesting matchup, guys. This is a fight that I've been kind of going back and forth on. This is kind of a hard fight to make a pick for, especially because, like, prior to Michael Venom Page joining the UFC, I hadn't seen a lot of his fights. I had seen a lot of his highlights. I know he's a little bit older in his career coming into the UFC, but in my opinion, he hasn't had like a standout performance in the UFC. I mean, I know he's only fought Kevin Holland and Ian Machado Gary, and I do think he was piecing up Ian Machado Gary up until Ian Gary started to mix it up with the takedowns, because he knew he just could not strike with Michael Venom Page. Michael Venom Page is very fast, very elusive, has very fast hands, even though he doesn't throw a lot in combination, and I don't think he has as much power as we think. He is very fast. He's a very, very hard guy to prepare for. While Sharon Magomedov, I wouldn't say that he's in a similar spot to Michael Venom Page, but I mean his last fight, right, against that guy, I forgot his name, Pedro, whatever that guy was, who he KO'd with a spinning back fist, or a double spinning back fist. I don't think Sharon Magomedov looked that impressive to me either. So these are two guys that, in my opinion, haven't had like their standard performance in the UFC. Like I said, I know that Sharon Magomedov just got that viral knockout last October in Abu Dhabi, but even before that knockout, it wasn't like he was just dominating Petrosinho, right? You know what I'm saying? So I'm not too impressed with either guy. So I'm honestly surprised the UFC made this matchup, and I don't know why, right? Because even though Michael Venom Page, he just lost at 170 against Ian Gary, it wasn't a bad loss. It was a loss that he was winning on the feet. He just needs to improve his takedown defense, and he could still, in my opinion, at least be a top 10 contender in the welterweight division. So I don't understand why Michael Venom Page decided to move up to 185. Maybe there's an interview out there that I haven't watched where he addresses this, but honestly, the weight is a thing that is kind of holding me back from being confident in picking Michael Venom Page in this fight, because I don't know, man. I know that Michael Venom Page has a faster hands. I know he's going to be the faster guy on the feet. I know Sharon Magomedov, one of his weaknesses is definitely his boxing. He relies a lot on his kicks, his head kicks, his spinning heel kicks. He relies more on that than his hands, even though I do think he has good power in his hands. Now, Michael Venom Page, he goes in and out of range, and I think Michael Venom Page is going to be the faster guy in this fight. To be honest, it's a very hard fight to predict, right? In my opinion, because I just have this weird feeling that even though Michael Venom Page might be a little bit too fast in those early rounds, I could see Sharon Magomedov catching him with something sneaky. I don't know why. Ever since this fight got announced, I'm like, I could see Sharon Magomedov knocking him out. Something sneaky, something where Michael Venom Page, goes into range, and then Sharon Magomedov throws something at the same time, and Michael Venom Page doesn't see it coming, and he goes down to the ground. And I just don't think Michael Venom Page, in my opinion, is big enough to take down Sharon Magomedov. The fact that if this was at 170, maybe Sharon Magomedov was cutting down to 170, maybe I could. Michael Venom Page doesn't have the best grappling. Maybe I could trust him a little bit more in this matchup. But because Michael Venom Page is the one moving up to 185 pounds, I don't like that. I really don't like that. I don't know if he's ever fought at 185. Maybe he's fought at 185 prior to, joining the UFC. And if he has, make sure to let me know down in the comments below, because maybe that changes my pick. But honestly, guys, I'm going to go with Sharon Magomedov. I want to pick Michael Venom Page. I don't really like Sharon Magomedov. I think he's very overrated. But the fact that this fight takes place at 185, the fact that this fight is a 3-rounder, the fact that Sharon Magomedov is very explosive, has good power as well. And I think Michael Venom Page, he's a very good striker, but I think he's also very predictable with his strikes. The hardest thing about Michael Venom Page is getting a hold of his speed on the feet, more than necessarily him throwing combinations or, bunch of, having a lot of versatility when it comes to his strikes. I don't really see that from Michael Venom Page. I also think he's a little bit older now. I think that if anything, I could kind of see maybe Sharon Magomedov taking the fight down to the mat more than Michael Venom Page in this fight. And because of that, I just got to go with Sharon Magomedov. I think he'll win by a decision. I could see a scenario here where maybe he catches Michael Venom Page with something sneaky. I'm not saying a spinning back fist, but maybe a head kick coming in. Michael Venom Page, keeps his hands very, very low in fights. So even though Sharon Magomedov, I don't think he's the faster guy in terms of his boxing, I think this is still a guy you need to be very, very careful on the feet. And like I said, I don't even understand why they made this fight. I don't understand why Michael Venom Page is all of a sudden fighting Sharon Magomedov when, he's 1-1 at welterweight. He beat Kevin Holland, then he lost to Ian Gary, which is kind of a short notice fight, to be honest. And in a fight where I thought he was winning, obviously, up until he started to get out grappled. So I don't think it's like an embarrassing loss to lose to Ian Gary. So I don't understand. Maybe he realized that in the welterweight division right now, there's a lot of grapplers. There's Sean Brady, there's Gilbert Burns, there's obviously the champion Bilal Muhammad, Kamaru Usman, and maybe he didn't want to fight any of those guys. But I think he could have fought maybe a Jeff Neal. That would have been an interesting fight. While Sharon Magomedov could have maybe fought, I don't know, maybe a Bo Nickel. I don't know. I just think this is a very weird match. I'm not mad about it. I think it's gonna be a good fight, but it's just one of those fights where when it got announced, I just was kind of scratching my head like, okay, wait, what? Why is Michael Venom Page moving to 185? Like, it doesn't make sense. He's not like a very thick guy. He's a very tall guy. Both of these guys have very, very similar frames, but I don't know, man. This fight scares me for Michael Venom Page as much as I want to pick him. So I could see Michael Venom Page winning, maybe a 29-20. But I'm going to go with Sharon Magomedov to win, guys. I'm going to go with Sharon Magomedov to win this fight. I think it's a very interesting fight. I think I want to know what you guys think about this fight more than any of the other fights on the card, because this is a very, very tough fight to predict. And like I said, even though I don't think Sharon Magomedov has the boxing, I think his leg kicks, his that side kick he throws to the body is pretty good. And I'm very curious. I hope this is not a boring fight, because when you have like these similar type of strikers in a fight, then the fight could kind of be a little bit boring, because both of them are just kind of reacting to each other, waiting for somebody to throw something so they could counter. So I hope it's not that type of fight. And like I said, I think that even if Sharon Magomedov starts to get a little bit frustrated on the feet, I think he'll be smart enough to grapple. Maybe not, good enough to control Michael Venom Page, but at least slow him down a bit and then maybe land some shots. So I think this is going to be a very, very close fight. But anyway, guys, I want to know what you guys think, and make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.